ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त श्रीराधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्रीराधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा। We have great pleasure to welcome participants on behalf of ISKCON Chennai for the 6th session of our Bhagavad Gita as it is certification course. Today's chapter is entitled Dhyana Yoga. So here is a summary of chapter 5, what we have studied already. It is called Karma Yoga or action in Krishna consciousness. Its another name is called Buddhi Yoga. We all know Buddhi means intelligence. The Buddhi here refers to a superior transcendental intelligence which comes to us from beyond material nature. It comes actually from the spiritual nature or Lord Krishna himself. That is what comes to us in the form of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So anyone who is able to implement the prescriptions of Bhagavad Gita by using his superior intelligence is called a Buddhi Yogi. He is also called Bhakti Yogi. His consciousness is constantly fixed on Krishna, on serving Krishna and pleasing Krishna. That is his only goal. And there are other paths leading to this. Apart from Bhakti Yoga, which is right from the beginning, in devotion to Krishna, the Bhakta starts serving Krishna. Right from beginning, it is Bhakti, Bhakti, Bhakti. Starts from Bhakti, ends with Bhakti. Actually, there is no end. The Bhakti simply keeps on growing. As Bhakti grows, love of Krishna grows. Love of Krishna grows means reciprocation from Krishna grows. When Krishna's reciprocation comes, your love further increases. Your desire to serve Krishna increases. So that way, Bhakti is an eternal process. Just as Krishna and the soul are eternal, Bhakti is also an eternal process. But there are other processes also that eventually lead to Bhakti. Once you reach Bhakti, you join the other Bhaktas. Those who are already in Bhakti, you will join them by taking a process like Sankhya Yoga, which is analytical study of matter and spirit, and then trying to hold on to the spirit by using your Viveka, or the capacity to discriminate between what is unreal and real. Karma Yoga means working without attachment to the fruits, which will lead you to transcendental knowledge that everything here in this material nature, the diversity, it is all resting on a fundamental unity, undifferentiated one, that is called Brahma Jyoti. So through Karma Yoga, you reach that jnana, that there is ultimately everything is in one Jyoti, the entire material creation is floating on that. And then the jnani realizes that this Brahma Jyoti is actually the light emanating from the body of Krishna, and it is coming from the spiritual world. And then he starts doing bhakti. So Sankhya leads to jnana, karma leads to jnana, and the jnana will lead you to bhakti. So ultimately, everything is bhakti. Today we are going to discuss about one more yoga, It is called Dhyana Yoga. It is also called Ashtanga Yoga. Krishna discusses that very briefly in the 5th chapter, very briefly, just one shloka. Today we will see that Ashtanga Yoga in great detail. We will also come to know that Ashtanga Yoga also leads to Bhakti Yoga. So Krishna starts the chapter by discussing how yoga and sannyasa are both based on renouncing the material attachments. So sannyas means giving up the fruits of activity. It does not mean giving up activity. People think sannyas means, somebody takes sannyas and ran away from home. Family burden became so difficult, he ran away from home. Or the office burden became so difficult, he gave up his job in the office and simply sitting at home. They are not sannyasis. Somebody wearing a saffron, wearing some beads on his neck, having a long beard or a shaven head and having no fixed place, just wandering and begging. These are not the qualifications of a sannyasi. A sannyasi is one who has renounced the fruit of his action, but he remains active in his duties. He is not worried what result will come. So a sannyasi is renounced from the result of his work, but he is working. A yogi is one. The word yoga means to unite. In English, the word yoke, yoking the bull to the plow. Yoking means to tie together, to unite. That is the yoke. That comes from Sanskrit yog. Yoga means to unite, and yoga means to unite the individual soul with Paramatma, the Jivatma with Paramatma or Bhagavan. That union is called yoga. So what is a yogi doing? Yogi is detaching himself from everything material and is attaching to the Supreme Lord. So that way he is also renounced. So the yogi is renouncing everything material, the fruits of all his action he surrenders and he wants to connect with God. So both yogi and sannyasi are detached from material fruits of action. They are not detached from duty. Krishna gives it symbolically by saying one who does not light fire is not a yogi or a sannyasi, because fire means fire sacrifice. So doing duty but not attaching to the result is the correct definition of yoga or sannyas. Anyone who gives up his duty prematurely, while in his mind he is meditating on various sense pleasures, he is not a sannyasi or a yogi, he is only a pretender. So that is not considered as yoga or sannyas. The renunciation and yoga means simply, renunciation means detaching from Maya, yoga means attaching to Krishna. So both are the same. If you are not attached to Krishna, you are attached to Maya. If you are detaching from Maya, you become attached to Krishna. So both are actually the same thing. And Ashtanga Yoga has got 7 steps. We will see what these 7 steps are. Before that, we will further discuss who is the best mystic and who is fully renounced. Now we are talking about 4 different kinds of people. One is a materialistic person who is working for the satisfaction of himself and his family, or maybe his community or his nation. A materialist person is working for results that will make him happy, or his community happy, or his nation happy. All this is basically selfishness. Either it is narrow selfishness or broad selfishness, but it is all selfishness. So materialist person is working for selfish material results. What about a jnani? Jnani is doing work of studying the scriptures and learning and analyzing in his mind, but his goal is, one day I will know Brahman and I will become part of that Brahman. I will merge in that Brahman. After that I will have no work. So he is working with the view that one day he will have no work. So Jnani is also having a selfish interest of merging in the Brahman. He wants to lose his individuality by merging in the Brahman. He doesn't want an individual existence. So he also has a desire. And a yogi wants mystic powers. Mystic powers are called siddhi. There are various kinds of siddhis like growing big, growing invisible, or picking up something which is in a faraway place, or traveling from here to moon or sun. They have the powers. Or they can see what is going on under the ground. They can see and hear what is going on in a faraway place. Like these siddhis are there. They are aiming for that unnatural, supernatural powers they want. But a devotee wants the satisfaction of Krishna. He is not working for himself. His desire is satisfaction of Krishna. So you may wonder, how is it possible that somebody works for Krishna without anything for himself? Because a devotee understands that I am a part of Krishna. My constitutional position is that I am simply a small part of Krishna. So the part has a duty to serve the whole, and by serving the whole, the part is automatically nourished. Like watering the root of the tree, the whole tree is nourished. I am a part of the tree, so I am also nourished. So devotee has the correct understanding that I am not a separate person. I am not an individual. I have no identity except I am a part of Krishna. I am an eternal servant of Krishna. So now you see who is fully renounced. Devotee is not demanding anything for himself. He is demanding everything for Krishna. So that way he is actually renounced by knowing his correct position. Other people, materialist, jnani, yogi, they don't know the correct position. They will know after some time. By practicing their respective paths, one day they will reach. So there is a 8-step yoga ladder called Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga means 8 parts are there in this yoga process. We will see what these are. And in the 8th step, they attain the highest stage. After that, there is no work because the yogi is absorbed in Samadhi stage. Compared to a Krishna conscious person or a devotee is always active, but how active? He is always in deep meditation on Krishna or Bhagavan from the very beginning. So the Ashtanga Yoga, the 8th step is where the devotee is always present. The Ashtanga Yogi has to cross 7 steps to reach the stage in which the Bhakta is there today itself. We will see how. So Ashtanga Yoga process consists of 8 steps. There is a small correction here. Yama means negative disciplines, which means what you should avoid. You should not overeat, you should not over endeavor, you should not smoke or take intoxicants, you should not engage in sex. Like that, Yama means so many don'ts. No liquor, no intoxication, no meat eating, no illicit sex, so many things will come. Niyama means you should wake up early in the morning, you should take a cold water bath, you should do your puja, you should sit in a place quietly, you should not mix with, like basically the should. You should be in an isolated place, you should wear clean clothes, you should select the right place for practicing your asana, pranayama, like that niyama. So any yoga studio which is teaching today yoga, you find out are they teaching yama and niyama. None of them will teach. If anybody is teaching, they have to close down. So today what is going in the name of Ashtanga Yoga is a pure cheating process. Anywhere they promise to teach you yoga, they are not teaching you how to unite with Krishna. Because these 2 steps are missing, they are not even doing the first step. They are taking you directly to asana, or even taking you to the 4th step of pranayama, or even to the 7th step of dhyana. So today's Ashtanga Yoga is all bogus. Unless one remains a brahmachari, he cannot practice any of these yoga systems, whether it is Ashtanga Yoga or Jnana Yoga. Complete celibacy is required. A person should not even get married, what to speak of watching the internet and movies, other things and gossips. Complete celibacy, complete control of the mind and body from sex is the preliminary requirement of these yoga processes. Then he is taught how to sit in a place by controlling the body. By doing asanas, his body becomes controlled. And then he does pranayama or breath control, by which his breathing comes under control. Then with pranayama and asana, he goes to pratyahara, which means he withdraws the senses inward. Now the senses are going outward. Our eyes, ears, nose, every sense is looking for external pleasure. But a yogi who has mastered pranayama, he is able to withdraw the energy which is going out through the senses. Actually, our senses are acting because we are releasing energy through our senses. But by withdrawing the energy, the yogi is able to control the senses. When the senses are controlled and breathing is controlled, mind comes under control. After that, he tries to concentrate his mind on one fixed point, that is called dharana. And once he gets that ability to focus on one thing, then he starts meditating on the Paramatma within. That is called dhyana. But it is very difficult in the beginning stage. Mind will keep on deviating. So that stage is called dhyana. But when that stage is never deviating, it remains fixed, then it is called samadhi. After that, the presence of God never leaves his heart, and he is connected with the absolute truth. There is no difference between absolute truth and Krishna. He is the absolute truth. So the yogi is fixed in the absolute truth, and he is enjoying unlimited happiness from within. So he is never likely to leave that position and fall down. So the 8-step Ashtanga Yoga process, until you reach the 8th step, you can fall down at any point of time. But because the Bhakta is in the Samadhi stage from the beginning, only meditating on Krishna all the time and Krishna's pleasure, the devotee does not fall down. By establishing a relation with Krishna right from the start. Let us read some shloka. Bhagavad Gita chapter 6, shloka number 5. Uddharedatmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet atmaiva hi atmano bandhur atmaiva ripuratmanaha. Again. Uddharedatmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet atmaiva hi atmano bandhur atmaiva ripuratmanaha. Translation. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. So this is an important shloka. You see the word Atma coming so many times. The shloka is so beautiful to read. The word Atma simultaneously means many things. The body, the mind, the soul, the senses, it has different meanings. But here the meaning is, I must uplift myself with the help of my mind, but I should not degrade. Mind can both uplift you and degrade you. When it uplifts, it is a friend. When it degrades, it is your enemy. Next shloka. Bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmana jitaha anatmanastu shatrutve varte tatmaiva shatruvat. Again. Bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmana jitaha anatmanastu shatrutve varte tatmaiva shatruvat. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. Now we are explaining the previous shloka. For whom it is a friend, he has to conquer the mind. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. How beautifully Krishna explains. Who can argue with this? Who can debate this point? So we have to learn to control our mind. So the whole business of yoga is mind control. How to do mind control? There are many paths, but the goal is mind control. Once the mind comes under your control, the soul becomes the master of the mind. That is what we are aiming for. Uncontrolled mind is the worst enemy. Why? Because the uncontrolled mind runs behind our senses. The senses run behind sense objects. You can imagine yourself as this. Let us say there is a chariot. The chariot is your body. It has 5 horses. The 5 horses are your senses. There are the reins connecting the 5 horses. Those reins, the ropes connecting the horses, that is your mind. And there is a driver who is holding the reins. He is called the intelligence. And there is a passenger in the chariot, and that is you, the soul. So the soul is a passenger in this body. The body is the chariot. The 5 horses are the 5 senses. The reins are the mind, and the intelligence is the driver. Now you understand, the mind, when the intelligence lets loose, then the senses will run all over the place and put you down. The soul has no control. The soul will simply be scared and sit in the vehicle. This is what is happening today to many people. There are murders, there are suicides, there are corruptive activities, there are people engaging in uncontrolled sex and intoxication. This is all the pull of the senses. The irritates and agitates and misguides the intelligence. This is what the mind does. Even though intelligence is more powerful than the mind, but the mind has the ability to pull the intelligence down and pull it towards sense gratification. As a result, the soul is degraded. So we should make sure that we don't degrade. We should deliver ourselves with the help of our mind. A controlled mind is a clear mind. It receives the dictations of Paramatma. The mind, you can imagine like a clear pool of water. When it is agitated, it will not reflect anything. But the mind is not agitated, clear, it will reflect the Paramatma. You can see the Paramatma within and hear his dictations. Actually, Paramatma is inside everyone and he is also talking, but we are unable to see and hear because our mind is agitated by senses. But a controlled mind, because it hears the dictations of Paramatma and it is ready to execute, then it becomes your best friend. Because Paramatma is your best friend, and when the mind enables you to connect with Paramatma, the mind becomes your best friend. The senses are automatically controlled with that. Senses cannot run away helter-skelter, and your lifestyle becomes healthy, you become free and elevated. So, in a Krishna consciousness process, when I say Krishna conscious, please understand we are talking about Bhakti Yoga. In Bhakti Yoga, you are always following the Paramatma because Paramatma and Bhagavan are the same. So when the mind is controlled, Krishna says super soul is already reached. A person whose mind is controlled, he has already reached the super soul. Super soul is Parama Atma. We are the soul, super soul is Paramatma. So when your mind is controlled, the pool of the mind has become crystal clear. And the super soul within is reflected. Super soul itself is a reflection of Krishna in our hearts. And that reflection we are able to see in our mind. So a devotee who is constantly meditating on the super soul, his mind is automatically controlled. But here, the Ashtanga yogi, by an artificial or a mechanical process, he is trying to control the mind. I hope you remember the 7 steps what we spoke. They are the mechanical process. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana. These are all mechanical process. You are not enjoying doing these things. But because you want to enjoy Samadhi, you are doing all these things. And by a mechanical process, these are all laws of nature. By using that properly, the yogi reaches that ultimate stage. But a bhakta automatically has controlled his mind. And he is at the stage of super soul. Super soul is already reached by him. In duality, he remains tranquil. That means whether happiness or misery, success or failure, pleasure or pain, heat or cold, he is not disturbed. Why? Because he is conscious of his soul. Not only that, he is also conscious of the super soul. The soul is deriving its pleasure from the super soul. So it is no longer looking at the body for its happiness. So the self-realized yogi will see the pebbles and gold as the same. He will not make a distinction, oh, this is pebble, this is gold, because he is not materially attached at all. So what difference is there? It's all matter. And matter is simply the energy of Krishna, nothing high or low. As he advances more, he will see his friend, enemy, or someone neutral, or a well-wisher, or an active supporter. Everybody will be same to him. He will not say, he is my enemy, he is my friend. For him, everybody will be the same. And then he will be engaging in pure devotional service by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Just the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra controls his mind and gives realization of not only the Paramatma, but Bhagavan. Directly he is able to connect with Krishna. So now we will talk a little more about Ashtanga Yoga or Dhyana Yoga, mainly to make you understand it is impossible in this age. This is all coming from Bhagavad Gita only. Krishna is describing to Arjuna how to perform Ashtanga Yoga. First he says, select a sacred place for doing dhyana and find an isolated, secluded place where you will sit down and you will spread kusha grass. Kusha means darba grass. You have to spread it because it prevents the negative vibrations to reach you. On the kusha grass, you have to put a deer skin for further positive energy and then a soft cloth so that your body will not be irritated. And the seat should be neither high nor low. These are the prescriptions Krishna is giving. And then you have to sit firmly on that seat. And you have to hold body, neck and head in a straight line. And then you have to steadily stare at the tip of the nose. Your eyes should neither be fully closed so that you don't fall asleep, nor it should be fully open so that your senses will start pulling you. It has to be half closed and looking at the tip of the nose. And you have to become fearless in your mind, unagitated, and your mind should be completely subdued. It should not be under the control of senses. And clearly Krishna says, absolutely no sex life, brahmacharya. Today, how is it possible? And at our age, we are all married. So married people have no question of doing this Ashtanga Yoga. Even others who are not married, they are watching internet, they are going for movies, they are doing gossiping with friends, they are looking at all kinds of print media and electronic media. So mind is already polluted. So brahmacharya means mind, words and body are completely free from sex. So nobody can do it today. And they have to meditate on the Paramatma in the heart. Paramatma is already in the heart. But unless you do all these things, you cannot meditate on the Paramatma in the heart. What is the ultimate goal? It is to attain the spiritual kingdom of God, not to enjoy mystic siddhis. But today, most people who practice Ashtanga Yoga, they want to get some powers and to display it to the people and attract their attention. They will produce some gold. Some people may use tricks also, but some people may have real siddhis also. But siddhis don't make them God. Today, if somebody produces some ash or some cash, we are able to fall at their feet and say, you are God. But we don't know. God has created a whole universe. And this petty small man, he's producing some ash or some cash, and we say, oh, you are Bhagavan for me. That is Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, our intelligence has become so weak. Krishna has created this whole universe, but we want to go after someone who creates a little gold. Krishna has created mountains of gold, mines of gold, but somebody produces you 10 grams of gold and you say you are God. Krishna has lifted a whole mountain on his little finger of the left hand. So his powers, he has put whole planets and sun to run in the outer space forever. And some scientists will put a small rocket like a mosquito in the space and say, oh, my scientists are so great. They have conquered nature. Because of that, today we are suffering from unwanted diseases, etc. Because we don't know where to give credit. We don't know to give credit to God. And we would rather forget about God. And we are constantly thinking, I will one day conquer over nature. That is why these sufferings are coming. But basically, the aim of a dhyana, of a Ashtanga yogi, is to attain to God. Because attaining to God is the highest happiness. Nothing else is. So a yogi will have an unagitated mind. He will have no material desires. That means he has got only one desire, that is a spiritual desire to go back to Krishna. He observes complete celibacy. He doesn't even think of sex life in his mind. Actually, I can give you some stories. Because of limitation of time, I won't be able to do that. But I will touch upon this. There was one yogi called Shaubari Muni. He was meditating under the water of Yamuna because he thought if I come outside, something will attract my attention and I will fall down. So under the Yamuna, one day he opened his eyes under the water. He saw two fish mating. When he saw this copulating fish, he developed sex desires in his mind. Immediately he came out of the water. He went to a great king and he said, I want to marry your daughter. The king was afraid. This man is looking so ugly because for years together he has been sitting in water. He is having long beard and all. He said, I have 50 daughters. If any daughter likes you, you can marry her. Because the king thought nobody will like him. But by using his mystic powers, he transformed into a beautiful young man. And he married all the 50 girls because they all wanted to marry him. But then much later he realized, oh my God, what I have done. I went to do meditation under the water so that I will not be attracted by sex. But today I have got 50 wives. So complete celibacy is so very difficult. And also a yogi should be moderate in eating. He should not eat too much, eat too little. He should not sleep too much or sleep too little. He should not work too much or he should not recreate too much. Everything should be in moderation. Krishna says these things. Everything should be in moderation. You should sleep at the right time, wake up at the right time, do the right amount of work, have the right amount of relaxation. Then only you can have an unagitated mind. Here we have a nice shloka. Yato yato nischalati manas chanchalam astiram tatastato niyam yaitat atman yeva vasam nayet. Krishna is telling Arjun how to control the mind. Yato yato nischalati manas chanchalam astiram tatastato niyam yaitat Atman eva vasamnayet. Translation: from whatever and wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. So Krishna is telling again, remember, the whole purpose of any kind of yoga is to control the mind, because it is the mind which is preventing you from accessing God. It is preventing you from experiencing God. And where is God? He is within you. So the mind is constantly pushing you outward. You can imagine a bucket of water. You are trying to put a ball inside. You are pushing the ball down. But the moment you take your hand out, the ball is bouncing up because the buoyancy of the water is pushing it up. Similarly, the mind, you are trying to still the mind and you want to dive into the mind to the bottom and experience Paramatma. But what the mind does, it is so much agitated, constantly pushing you out through thoughts. Some thought comes and you just start running behind the thought and you are no longer in your meditation. You can sit for hours together in meditation, but the mind will always conquer you. Mind is like a mad elephant. So trying to conquer the mind is so difficult. But Krishna is telling, if you want to do yoga, you have to do this. Mind is always unsteady, flickering. So every time wherever the mind wanders, bring it back and under the control of the self. So Arjuna is hearing and is bewildered. So today's people think yoga is simply some breathing exercise, pranayama. Everybody is attracted by pranayama. But remember, pranayama is the fourth step. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama. Fourth step. First you have to do yama, niyama. How many of us have done yama, niyama? So our pranayama is bogus. We may get some physical strength, but our senses will never be controlled by our pranayama unless we do properly. So because we are not connected in the correct path, we are doing yoga also wrongly. It is not a breathing exercise, or it is not asana, which is the third step, physical exercise for a healthy body. It doesn't mean going to the Himalayas and sitting in meditation. We can never do because we have not practiced yama and niyama. And it's not for better facility of sense enjoyment. This is the way to live, what you call art of living. We can live life nicely and enjoy many things in this world. But the purpose of yoga is not that. Yoga itself means union with God. So the modern day yoga societies are not teaching us right. The yoga is union between individual consciousness and supreme consciousness in love. There is complete love. When that love is established, it's called Krishna Prema. When you are united with God in Prema, then you are actually experiencing yoga. So Bhakti Yoga is what is ideal for this age. The regulations of Dhyana Yoga we have already seen. It is extremely challenging for this age. The best means of spiritual realization is Bhakti Yoga. All of you would have already seen how easy Bhakti Yoga is. Actually, right now, I am sitting and talking Bhagavad Gita. I am doing Bhakti Yoga. And you are sitting and listening to Bhagavad Gita. You are doing Bhakti Yoga. And after this class is over, you will continue to read your notes, meditate on what you have read, try to internalize what you have read. That is also Bhakti. And with this information, you will go stand in front of Krishna and clasp your hands together and say, Krishna, please help me to progress. You will do prostrate obeisances to Krishna. You will have a nice altar in your house. You will start decorating the deities, either the pictures or the vigrahas, and you will offer them nice prasadam, and you will sing nice kirtans for them, and you will take your beads and start chanting the holy names of God, or you will talk to other devotees and take their association, or you will pick up a copy of Bhagavad Gita and read it with devotion. All these things are bhakti. You are leading your normal life, but simultaneously you are giving some time to Krishna. Not only that, you are giving some time exclusively to Krishna, and also the rest of your life you are organizing in such a way what you call dovetailing. You are dovetailing the rest of your life in service of Krishna. That is Bhakti Yoga. So by chanting the holy names, we can stay at home and perform Bhakti so beautifully. You don't have to go to the forest. Whether you are in the forest or you are at home, whether you are in happiness or you are in misery, you can always chant the holy names of Krishna. So only in Bhakti, a controlled householder life is allowed. In the other yogas, in Jnana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, impossible. You have to renounce everything. And then only you are in a position to practice that. And sex is absolutely out of question. But for a bhakta, controlled sex in a family life is allowed to produce children and to bring them up as wonderful devotees. Because the whole purpose of this world is to help souls to evolve towards Krishna. That is the entire purpose. So here you see, we have seen all those conditions. Now we see how a devotee is already a yogi. Why? Devotee is regulated in eating. Devotee will not simply enter into a restaurant and eat. Why? Because devotee knows, if I eat for taste, I am eating only sin. I must eat only prasadam. So a devotee is neither called a vegetarian or a non-vegetarian. He is called a prasadarian. But of course, only vegetarian food can be offered to Krishna. That is why he is also a vegetarian. But a devotee does not eat simply because there is a vegetarian restaurant. He will not go and eat there. Even though they are serving vegetarian food, maybe organic food, they may even call it sattvic food, but devotee will not go to a hotel to enjoy his tongue. He would always prepare nice prasadam at home. If he doesn't know, he will learn, because he wants to offer nice food to Krishna. And he will eat only what has been taken by Krishna, accepted by Krishna. So a devotee's eating is regulated. Somebody will say a new restaurant has opened, they are serving nice masala dosa. Devotee will not even be attracted by that. He says, no, I will make nice palatable dishes for my Krishna at home. I have got nice ingredients. Because it is Krishna, he will buy the best ingredients possible. He will not compromise that, and will make nice dishes and offer it to Krishna, and then only he will eat it as Krishna prasadam. Same way with sleeping, he is controlled. He wants to go to sleep early so that he can get up in Brahma Muhurta, take a nice bath, chant the holy names of Krishna, and wake up Krishna in the altar and serve him nicely. So devotee's life is controlled sleeping. He doesn't sleep too much. 6 hours is maximum. If you sleep more than that, you are in Tamoguna. Same with his work also. He works for Krishna, and his recreation is simply serving Krishna. What is the problem? Krishna is all happiness, all attractive. So serving Krishna is a recreation. So devotee eats prasadam, and it gives him a higher taste of Krishna. Prasadam is not just food. Prasadam includes the mercy of Krishna. The word prasadam means mercy. So mercy is in the prasadam what you eat. And he is never wasting time. Avyartha kalatvam. He never wastes time. And yukta vairagya. He is not simply having vairagya, I will not enjoy. Not like that. But yukta vairagya means everything can be used in the service of Krishna. If I have money, I can use it in service of Krishna. If I have intelligence, I can use it in service of Krishna. If I have some skill, I can use it in service of Krishna. I have power, position, influence, that can also go in service of Krishna. So, he knows every energy is belonging to Krishna. Whether it is in the form of money, or in the form of my time, or in the form of my properties, everything is Krishna's. So he will use it in the service of Krishna. That is uniting. That's called yukta. The vairagya, he has a desire to use everything in the service of Krishna only. So he is a renounced person. But he may not be like a sannyasi wearing always saffron. He may be a family man. He may be having his children. He may be having his business. He may be having property. But in his mind, nothing belongs to him. In his mind, everything belongs to Krishna. And he's only seeing how to serve Krishna the best with whatever he has. So this way we can compare the effects of yoga and bhakti. Ultimately, they lead to the same result. I will first explain to you what I have written at the bottom of this slide. Jnana Vijnana Triptatma. This you should understand what it means. Triptatma means one who is completely satisfied. For us, it is only theoretical. Huh? When did we experience complete satisfaction? There is always some hankering in our heart, or there is some lamenting in our heart. We are hankering for something that we don't have, or we are lamenting for something that we have lost. Something I had, but I have lost. This is constantly going on. Where is Triptatma? But here, what is the correct Triptatma? Someone who has got the correct knowledge from Bhagavad Gita and from Guru. You have learned the absolute truth by the Guru Parampara in the form of Bhagavad Gita. That is knowledge, that is acquired knowledge. What is Vijnana? Vijnana is realized knowledge. So they are two different things. Jnana means I am speaking to you, you are acquiring knowledge from me. I am telling you are not the body, you are the spirit soul, and you are acquiring this knowledge from me. But Vijnana means you have to practice this knowledge at home, at your workplace, throughout the day. You should practice whatever is taught, like worshipping Krishna, chanting the holy names, reading the scriptures, associating with devotees, serving the deities, preparing nice bhoga and offering to the deities. All these things will create realization in your heart. You will be able to experience that I am a soul, I am not the body. Then you have Vijnana. So now you have Jnana. You have to convert that Jnana into Vijnana by practice. That's why Bhagavad Gita is a practical book. It's not just theory. It contains theory, but with the theory, it encourages you to go into practice. So that Jnana and Vijnana together create a Tripta Atma. A Bhakta has the Jnana that I am part and parcel of Krishna. And how does he get Vijnana? He implements that. I am eternally a servant of Krishna. So he starts practicing. Throughout his life, he is only serving Krishna. And by serving Krishna, the realization comes. The love comes. That is a realization. He begins to feel love for Krishna. And the love constantly keeps growing. That is the Vijnana. So we have Jnana. And we are sometimes wondering, I got Jnana, but I am not happy. Why not happy? Because we have not yet started the practice. We can start the practice gradually, whatever it permits us to do now. Then we get a higher taste. That higher taste will make sure that you continue to do your practice. And you will get even higher and higher taste. So the stage of Samadhi in Ashtanga Yoga, the 8th step is Samadhi. There the soul and super soul are in communion. The transcendental mind, our present mind is material mind. When the mind is completely tranquil, it's called transcendental mind, and then I access my superior intelligence. Superior intelligence is spiritual knowledge. And then I experience transcendental happiness, which is actually the Lord's Chit Shakti. Lord's Chit Shakti means knowledge. God is all-knowing, we say, no? We get access to that knowledge. And that fills us with happiness by knowing everything is Krishna. There is nothing other than Krishna everywhere, whether it is material world or spiritual world. There is no friend or enemy. There is no body, soul. Everything is Krishna. All are energies of Krishna. That at that level, he completely enjoys. A Bhakti Yogi, because he is constantly in meditation on Bhagavan, he enters into the pastimes of Bhagavan. We will discuss it in future classes. The devotee, with his soul, he enters Vaikuntha right now. He doesn't have to die. Sometimes people think unless you die, how can you enter Vaikuntha? It's not necessary. By consciousness, one can enter. So God has 3 broad aspects. We won't have much time to discuss, but I will tell you what it is. Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam tadjnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdhyate. Bhagavan has 3 aspects. What are the 3? Brahmeti, first is called Brahman, then Paramatma iti, that is the second, and Bhagavan. What is Brahman? I already explained to you. The unchanging, unified one energy which is supporting the entire creation, that's called Brahma Jyoti. The Brahma Jyoti is undifferentiated light. The material universe is just floating on that. The material universe, it is bewilderingly changing, constantly changing. The child becomes an old man, the old man becomes dead, then he again becomes a child. The mountain is becoming a valley, valley is becoming mountain, the oceans are drying up, the land is converted into ocean. Constant changes are going on. They say some stars' lifetime is finished, new stars are being born, scientists are telling all these things. So there is constant change going on. But below all this, behind all this, in an unmanifest form, Brahma Jyoti is supporting everything. So that is one aspect of God, Brahman. In Brahman, there is no form, there is only light. So some people want to go into that Brahman and they think they will lose themselves. They cannot lose themselves. They will still be an individual ray of light within that energy, Brahma Jyoti. Someday when they develop some desire for activity, they will come down to the material world. So Jnanis attain that Brahma Jyoti. That is one aspect of Krishna only. It is definitely beyond material world. So that is Brahman. Beyond that, Paramatma, you already know, he is the reflection of God in everybody's heart. He is the all-knowing witness. The Paramatma, Manashakshi, we say. He is the witness of everything. That is another aspect of God. He is called the Paramatma of the whole universe. Virat Rupa, we say, that is a Paramatma. Then beyond that is Krishna. He is the original person. Paramatma is the reflection of Krishna into all living entities, and Brahma Jyoti is the one undifferentiated light which is supporting the whole creation. The Jnanis will come to know Brahman, Yogis will come to know Paramatman, but the devotees will come to know all three because they know Bhagavan. Once you know Bhagavan, which is the highest realization, other things are automatically known by them. So one has to be determined, perseverant, and faithful in this process to attain success. And once they attain success, they see no further gain, so they will never deviate. So let us understand clearly, the Ashtanga Yoga is a mechanical process of self-control. We are trying to self-control mechanically, the mind control. We are trying to control the mind mechanically because all of us have the experience mind is impossible to control. But by a mechanical process, Krishna says, steadily, gradually, by using your intelligence, bring your mind under control. And that way, the yogi progressively realizes the truth. Then he begins to see the Paramatma which is in everyone's heart. He does not distinguish between people. He sees everybody equally because the Paramatma is present inside. When Krishna is explaining all this, Arjuna will complain that Ashtanga Yoga is impossible for me because my mind is uncontrollable. Then Krishna says, you are right, but by constant practice and detachment, you can bring it under control. So Krishna says, mechanical process is also possible, but it will take time and it is difficult. So this is how the yogi goes up. First he comes to Sattva Guna. Tamo Guna, Rajo Guna, Sattva Guna. The yogi, when he starts the practice, he will rise quickly to Sattva Guna. From Sattva Guna, he will go beyond Sattva Guna into Brahma Jyoti. What I already told you, he will realize the transcendental Brahman. Then all the past karma, what you call sinful activities, not only sins, his punya, papa, everything will be destroyed. Some of you may be shocked why punya should be destroyed. Because punya also means you have to take rebirth to enjoy. Either in this planet or in heavenly planets, you have to take birth to enjoy your punya, not otherwise. So both punya, papa will be destroyed and he becomes free. And then he realizes Paramatma in his heart, which is the reflection of Bhagavan in his own heart. And then he becomes completely satisfied. At that stage, if he takes to pure bhakti, the yogi, then he will realize Bhagavan. Otherwise, he will not realize Bhagavan. So a yogi, when he connects himself with Bhagavan and he starts doing bhakti at that stage, then he will reach the same result what a devotee gets. Otherwise, he will not. A yogi will remain a yogi. But if he wants to rise to the level of a bhakta, at that point he must take up bhakti, devotional service. So clearly, a devotee's happiness by serving Bhagavan is far higher than what a yogi gets by Paramatma realization. He still doesn't know how to serve Paramatma. He is just observing Paramatma in his heart and he becomes happy. But a devotee is actually serving Krishna and receiving reciprocation from Krishna. This is something which is available only to a bhakta, a constant reciprocation of love. Bhakta is able to serve Krishna and Krishna becomes so grateful and happy with the bhakta and he reciprocates in different ways. We will see in due course. Here is another shloka. Yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pashyati tasyaham na pranasyami sacha me na pranashyati. Krishna is glorifying the yogi who has advanced at the stage of samadhi. Yomam pasyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pasyati tasyaham na pranasyami nacha me na pranashyati. This is shloka number 30. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor he is ever lost to me. So, in the Samadhi stage, yogi sees Krishna everywhere and Krishna in everything and everything in Krishna. In everything, he sees Krishna and everything is also within Krishna. Both these things he experiences, so he will never lose Krishna. Constantly he is remembering Krishna. So this is what Krishna is telling, and he is never lost to Krishna. And what are the glories of a yogi? He is self-controlled and he achieves loving service to the Lord. So at this stage he has become a bhakta. Now you can see the yogi is blending into devotion. He observes the Lord in every being, whether it is an animal, whether it is a high-born Brahmin or a low-born, low-caste, high-caste, nothing for a devotee. He sees Krishna in everything. How you can say Krishna as low-born or high-born? Because Krishna is born in each of us, whether it is a dog or a cow or an elephant or a high-born man or a low-born man, it's all Krishna only in different forms. So by teaching religion, you can bring equality. Our Sanatana Dharma, not every religion, many religions are incomplete in their knowledge. But Sanatana Dharma being complete, it can bring unification of whole creation. We will see the whole world as one family. He sees everything is established on the energy of the Lord. What we said, Brahma Jyoti, is the energy of the Lord. It is a light emanating from the body of Krishna. So he sees that and he never loses Krishna. And a devotee is always in this stage, a stage which yogi is reaching after much effort. Devotee is always in that stage. So a yogi is a friend of all because he compares himself to others. He knows why he is suffering in this material world only by forgetting Krishna. Only by forgetfulness of Krishna, I experience suffering or temporary happiness and misery that comes from bodily attachment. So the yogi wants to distribute his happiness to others by teaching them yoga, by teaching them how to connect with Krishna. So that way the yogi becomes a friend of all. He does not try to solve the temporary problems of everyone. What is the use? But he wants to solve permanently the problems of everyone. That way he becomes a friend of all. He has no envy or selfishness. The devotee is doing the same thing. He is sharing the knowledge of Krishna with everyone. So that way, a devotee is the best yogi. So Arjuna complains to Krishna, Krishna, you said I have to perform Ashtanga Yoga by controlling my mind, but it is impossible for me to control my mind. Even a raging wind I can control, but my mind I cannot control. So Krishna says, you are right, Arjun. Mind is very difficult to control, but still by suitable practice and by practicing detachment from material things, you can attain control of mind. So the suitable practice is actually bhakti. If you do bhakti, you can attain mind control very easily because you are going to use the mind and senses in the service of Krishna. You are not trying to keep the mind and senses quiet. If you try to keep them quiet, they will drag you down. Your mind will constantly meditate on pleasures. But if you are thinking about Krishna's beauty, Krishna's wonderful qualities, Krishna's wonderful pastimes, and about Krishna's wonderful devotees, and you are trying to serve all of them, you are busy. And you are busy and getting happiness out of it. So your work is your recreation, and your recreation is your work. So a devotee is always happy. So his mind and senses have no complaint. Our senses are asking for pleasure. Our mind is asking for pleasure. But we are giving unlimited pleasure to both of them. So they don't complain. So for the present age, the best way to control the mind is chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That is the best way of mind control. Mantra. Mantrayate iti mantra. Mantra means that which controls the mind. And this is called the Maha Mantra of deliverance. Our mind will be completely stilled and we shall be able to connect with Krishna directly. That is the power of Maha Mantra. And Krishna says again, without mind control, yoga can never be successful. So what is the destination of an unsuccessful yogi? Arjuna asking this question. If somebody starts yoga, but before he achieves samadhi, he is attracted by material things, and for some reason he gives up. What will happen? He is neither there nor here. He is unable to enjoy material enjoyment because he has given a lot of his time to spiritual activity. But spiritual enjoyment also he is not having because he has fallen down. And then Krishna explains what benefits they get in the future slides. We will go. An unsuccessful yogi, is he a loser of both this world and the next world? Then Krishna replies, a yogi, a jnana yogi or a dhyana yogi, if he does not complete the process, he will take future births in suitable places, in suitable families, and they will attain success through many births. So he will take care of them. Krishna says, first thing, anyone who is doing good, he will never perish. So anyone who takes up the yogic path, he will never perish. Krishna says that. Anyone who is trying to do something good, he gets full support from Krishna. And the Paramatma never forgets. Even if he falls down, Paramatma keeps the credit in his account. And with that, in the next birth, he will give him in an appropriate family, and then he will connect him. He will give him the remembrance also, where he left off, and from there he will connect. Actually, most of you, all of you, have done bhakti in your past lifetimes. That is how you are connecting now. This is by Krishna's arrangement, who is sitting in your heart as Paramatma. He is now connecting you. So this is how the process works. So Krishna says, when they die, they will spend a long time in heavenly planets with pure souls and enjoy a lot. And then they will come back into this material world, and they will take birth in aristocratic families who are also spiritually advanced people. In that family, he will reconnect with spirituality and make progress. He will not be attracted by petty material things. Automatically, he will be attracted by spiritual principles. So this is Krishna says, a transcendentalist never meets with destruction. So he all gain only, no loss for him. Because what pleasure is there in this material world, much higher pleasure he will enjoy in the heavenly planets. Then he will take birth in the family of transcendentalists or yogis or rich families. And Krishna will again give him the chance to take up yoga by giving him the right memory, connecting him with the right people. This is the assurance of Krishna. And he will not be attracted to rituals anymore. He will be attracted to yogic principles. And then he will make progress. So here we see 4 kinds of yogas, and we see it's a ladder from Karma Yoga to Jnana Yoga to Ashtanga Yoga to Bhakti Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga, the last step, Samadhi. At that point, if he starts serving Krishna in devotion, he attains Bhakti. So one step leads to the next step like that. So there is no conflict between yogas. All yogas are leading to Bhakti ultimately. But you don't have to go by these steps. You can directly go to Bhakti. It is like getting into the lift and going to the top floor. Somebody is coming by a spiral staircase, slowly walking. They will also reach the top. But a Bhakti Yoga, he gets into the elevator and goes quickly to the top. So Krishna closes the chapter with this shloka, very important shloka. I request all of you to memorize it if you can. Many shlokas are worth memorizing here. Yoginamapi sarvesham madgatena antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mataha. Yoginamapi sarvesham madgatena antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mataha. Translation. And of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. So Krishna is saying here, Bhakti Yogi is the highest. Out of all the yogis, Karma Yogis, Jnana Yogis, Sankhya Yogis, Ashtanga Yogis, Krishna says, one who always abides in me with great faith and worshipping me in transcendental loving service. This is what a bhakta does. And please remember, whether you are a beginning devotee or a mature devotee, In Krishna's eyes, both are very important. Devotee is very special for Krishna. He does not distinguish between a beginner devotee and a perfected devotee. He always helps them with love to advance by connecting to higher devotees. What we should do, we should always try to connect with devotees who are higher than us, who are practicing bhakti in their life nicely. We should always look for their association. Now we are summarizing what we have studied. Without mind control, any form of yoga is simply a waste of time. I am a personal proof of that. I wasted a lot of my time in unwanted jnana or yoga practices. I got nothing out of it. We can control mind with detachment and suitable practices. Suitable practices, ideally bhakti. For one who controls his senses and mind, he has already reached Paramatma. So let us understand, yoga means sense control and mind control. Spiritual practice means mind control. Without that, simply reading some books, dry mental speculation and arguing and debating with people, my path is correct, your path is correct, all unnecessary. Unless you start practice, you are not in spirituality at all. If you are simply reading books, this book, that book, here, there, listening to hundreds of lectures given by people with different ideologies, you are wasting your time. Sometimes you have to stop it and get deep into devotion. When he starts to render devotional service to Krishna, he can realize Bhagavan Krishna, which is the highest realization. You will experience happiness, peace, and harmony with everyone. So, a yogi is better than a karmi, jnani, or tapasvi. This is also Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita in the same chapter. Jnani is better than tapasvi, a jnani is better than a karmi, a tapasvi better than jnani, and devotee is higher than a tapasvi. These are the clarifications Krishna is giving. So the best practice in this age of Kali is to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and associate with devotees for complete perfection. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So here is the shloka from Kali Santarayana Upanishad. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Iti Shodasakam Nam Kali Kalmasha Nashanam Nataha Parataropayah Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. This is a conversation between Brahma and Narada. Narada is the son of Brahma. Narada is asking Brahma, for the age of Kali, how you can help the people. Please look at your Vedas. You are holding all 4 Vedas and tell me. So Brahma is telling, I have gone through all the 4 Vedas. There is no other way. Na ataha parataro upayaha sarva vedeshu drishyate. I have seen all 4 Vedas. In the Kali Yuga, there is no other way except to chant the 16-syllable mantra. Shodasakam Nam. Shodasa means 16. This 16-syllabled mantra is the best recommendation for Kali Yuga. It destroys all inauspiciousness of the age of Kali. So with this, we come to the end of today's session. Thank you very much. Please continue now. From the next chapter, we are climbing one higher level. Bhagavad Gita consists of 3 groups of 6 chapters each. First 6 chapters are like the lid of a treasure box. The last 6 chapters are like the base of the treasure box. And the middle 6 chapters are the treasure itself. So from next week, we will be entering into the treasure itself. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to distribute the treasure to all of us, by which we can attain perfection of our existence. So let us all pray to Srila Prabhupada for having given us this opportunity to enter into the secrets of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And let us take his blessings that we should be able to start our bhakti yoga practices sincerely, seriously, with complete commitment, so that we can make quick progress to connect with Krishna through him. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.